Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to find the difference quotient for some polynomials today. The difference quotient is something that you will use quite a bit in calculus. It's one of the first ideas that you guys start to talk about. We talk about limits and slope at points and things like that. So this is a really important big deal. It's a very algebraic process, so you're going to kind of just feel like you're grinding some algebra out, and hopefully you're going to notice some patterns here, like some things cancel out and they usually clean up pretty nicely. So before we do the difference quotient, we're just going to evaluate this function. If I say, what is f of a? That means you're going to plug a in everywhere you see an x. So f of a would be 2a squared plus 3a minus 1. That's it. If I said f of negative a, that's a little trickier. 2 times negative a squared plus 3 times negative a. What happens here is, if you have a negative times a negative, you're going to get a positive, so this is positive 2a squared. But this will end up being a negative 3a. So you'll see how they change a little bit. When you plug the minus in, this odd degree term ends up being a minus sign now. And then this is where you're like, okay, f of a plus h, let's do it. We're going to plug a plus h in everywhere we see an x. So 2 times a plus h squared plus 3 times a plus h minus 1. Everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a plus h. So you can see instead of 2a squared, it's 2a plus h squared. Now, you have to be really careful when you are simplifying this. This is not a squared plus h squared. If you think it is, then you just need to understand it never will be, and you will get 100% of the problems wrong. You will never get one right if you try and distribute an exponent, ever. It does not work. So let me remind you, when you see a plus h squared, a plus h, you need to FOIL. A times a is a squared, plus ah, plus h squared. So I'm going to leave the 2 alone, but then on the inside now I have a squared plus 2ah plus h squared. A plus h quantity squared is always going to be a squared plus 2ah plus h squared. I still have the rest of this. I'll distribute plus 3a plus 3h, and then I have a minus 1. Now I'll address the 2. 2a squared plus 4ah plus 2h squared. This, I'll have to combine some like terms in a minute. So what do I have when it's all said and done? 2a squared plus 4ah plus 2h. There are no like terms, are there? Okay. Plus 3a plus 3a. So there are no like terms. Okay. Sometimes it'll clean up. It's fine. It's ugly, but that's what it is. So these are going to get a little longer. Now what we're going to do is combine all 3 of these parts into one problem. I guess maybe not this one. So let's go ahead and see what we get. We're going to do, this is called the difference quotient. This is a formula. You don't need to have the formula memorized, but you will use it enough that you probably will have it memorized. You're going to take f of a plus h, then you're going to subtract f of a, and then you're going to divide the whole thing by h. Now, I just did this, so I'm going to take this guy and be like, this is f of a plus h, so let me just go ahead and not have to write it out again. Copy, paste. So the first part is f of a plus h. That's this. So f of a plus h, right here, minus f of a. Now, this is where you're going to miss it. If you get it wrong, you're going to forget to distribute the negative. So f of a, I also did. I'm just going to put an a everywhere I see an x. So 2a squared plus 3a minus 1. And this whole thing is over h. So I did this in yellow. F of a plus h is right here. Strike. Right here. Minus f of a. That's f of a. And then big fraction bar divided by h. Now, since we are subtracting the quantity f of a, you need to subtract everything in that quantity. So this isn't going to change. But now it's going to be minus 2a squared minus 3a plus 1. And now I still have this big denominator with h. If you're doing it right, you should notice that some stuff is going to cancel out. And we'll see what happens now. We have 2a squared minus 2a squared. Yes, that goes away. 3a minus 3a. Yes, that goes away. Negative 1 plus 1, that goes away as well. So all of those f of a terms cancel out. Cool. What do I still have left? 2h squared plus 3h plus 4ah, and it's all divided by h. Now, You should be able to recognize that I'm going to be able to cancel out an h, but this is a train wreck for people sometimes, where they just start deciding, oh, I'll just cancel this out and then I'm done, and what's going on? You need to understand why things are canceling, and if you don't show your work, you're going to get them wrong down the road. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. I've only done this for 15 years. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. When you see the numerator, and if you're trying to cancel out an h, factor an h out. There is a GCF in the numerator. It is h. And you would be left with 2h plus 3 plus 4a. If I factor an h out, this is now 2h, this is now 3, and this is now 4a. All divided by h. So now I can cancel out the h. I can cancel it out because this is division, and multiplication and division are opposites, so they cancel each other out. I have my final answer. I'm going to write it in a specific order. It doesn't really matter, but 4a plus 3, and I'll put the two h's on the end. So my answer is 4a plus 2h plus 3, or you can write it in whatever order you really want there. That's not a big deal. You just need to be able to get to this answer. And understanding what this is going to take a little bit of work. What is the difference quotient? Well, we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Right now, I just want you to grind some algebra. So that's it. That's your answer. Let's do another one. Again, you don't have to have the formula memorized. You just need to be able to use it. So I'm going to find f of a plus h. So that would be 2 times a plus h plus 1. If you plug a plus h in for x, you get this. So that's the first part. Minus sign. I always put parentheses. F of a, plug a in. So that would be 2a plus 1. Again, you're subtracting the quantity, so put it in parentheses. All divided by h. I'm going to simplify the top by distributing. So 2a plus 2h plus 1, and then minus 2a, and then minus 1. All over h. What goes away? Hopefully it's a lot. 2a goes away, and 1 and negative 1 go away. So I end up with just 2h over h, which simplifies to 2. So what's the difference quotient? The difference quotient is 2, and that's it. Your answer is 2. So I said we'd talk more about it later, but this is a good one to mention. The difference quotient is finding the slope of a tangent line at a point. This is a line. The slope at any point is going to be 2. So you can see that all this stuff canceled out, and the answer just was the slope, 2. Since it is a line, it always has the same slope, always, so the slope is 2. Let's try another one. This is a parabola, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of work. I'm going to plug the difference quotient in. I'm going to use f of a plus h. So it's a plus h squared minus 3. So I will expand a plus h squared again. I did it before, but the answer is a squared plus 2h plus 2ah plus h squared. I did it earlier in this video. So if you want to see me do it again, do it again. But it's going to be, instead of x squared, a plus h squared. So I'll write it out and then I'll expand it. A plus h squared minus 3. That's f of a plus h. Don't forget about the minus 3. Whoa, get out of here. Minus f of a. F of a would be a squared minus 3. All divided by, you still have an h in the denominator. So when I expand this, again, a plus h quantity squared is right there. A squared plus 2ah plus h squared. I still have a minus 3. Then I have minus a squared, and I have plus 3. And this is all over h. So what goes away? Hopefully a lot. A squared, negative 3. So I have 2ah plus h squared over h. And now again, I'm going to factor the GCF in the numerator, which is an h. And I will have 2a plus h over h. These cancel out. And you end up with 2a plus h. So the difference quotient is 2a plus h. It's just a long algebra problem, but there's a lot of conceptual stuff going on here. You need to be able to get through the algebra to get to the conceptual stuff. Couple more problems here. So find the difference quotient for the functions. I'm going to do the same thing, f of a plus h. So that would be a plus h squared minus a plus h. If you plug a plus h in here, you need parentheses. So that's f of a plus h minus quantity. F of a would be a squared minus a. And this is all over h. So let's expand. I've done this a couple times now, so I'm not going to do it again. A squared plus 2AH plus H squared. That's the first thing expanded. Then it'll be minus A minus H. Minus A minus H. Then it'll be minus A squared plus A all over H. You should notice that a lot of stuff cancels out. A squared, A. Cool. What am I left with? 2AH plus H squared minus H over H. I will factor in H out of the numerator, H, and I will have 2A plus H minus 1. And now that the H's cancel, I can see that my answer is 2A plus H minus 1. That's it. No long problems, more bells. Okay. You're just getting through a long algebra problem. Couple more. So I told you before, they're talking about finding slope. The answer to this one's going to be 3. It's a line. It's going to be 3. I know the answer is the slope, so it's going to be 3. Let's plug it in. 3 times A plus H minus 8. That's f of A plus H. Minus f of A, 3A minus 8. Over H. You got to distribute. 3A plus 3H minus 8 minus 3A plus 8. So I distribute the 3 and I distribute the negative. Still, that's not an H. Over H. What cancels? 3A, negative 8. Oh, look at this. 3H over H. Oh my gosh, the answer is 3. The difference quotient is 3. What's the slope? The slope is always 3 on a line. Of this line, anyway. So you don't need to worry too much about like A plus H stuff. It all cancels out because the slope is 3. Nice. One more. F of A plus H. 2 times A plus H squared minus 1. If I plugged in A plus H, that's what I get. Minus F of A. If I plug in A. 2A squared minus 1. All over H. You got to expand. Expand the exponent first. Think order of operations. So 2 times A squared plus 2AH plus H squared minus 1 minus 2A squared plus 1 minus 2A squared plus 1 all over H. This one's a little bit longer. They're going to be long sometimes. 2A squared plus 4AH plus 2H squared minus 1 minus 2A squared. All I did was distribute the 2. What goes away? 2A squared, negative 1. So 4AH plus 2H squared over H. Cancel out, or I'm sorry, factor out the H. 4A plus 2H. So if you just kick that down 1 degree, factor out an H. Now these cancel out, and your answer is 4A plus 2H. So the difference quotient for that one is 4A plus 2H. You need to practice these, and you need to make sure you're getting them right. The most common mistakes people will make is number 1, they will expand A plus H squared wrong, which I will give you no credit for. You will just get a 0 on the problem if you do that wrong, because it's terrible and you need to figure it out. Expand it correctly, and then the other thing that people miss most often is they forget to distribute this negative. So this becomes minus 2A squared plus 1. When you have that minus sign, you got to remember to distribute the negative. Those are the big things, so go do some practice problems, and be sure to hit that like and subscribe button.